This is Ken Clark, Director of Marketing at Just Systems. Welcome to our latest installment of XMetaL in 37 minutes. Today our presenter is going to be Derek Reed. He's XMetaL Technical Support here at Just Systems. Before we get started, I just wanted to cover a couple items. One is this will be recorded. So if you want to review it at any time or share it with a colleague, it will be available on the Just Systems Partner Center. If you don't have access to the Partner Center, feel free to contact your channel manager or myself, and we can get you access. It will also be mirrored on our public website for people who aren't partners. So if there's any need to download it, you can find it there. Also, we will be taking questions. You can ask questions using the WebEx interface, the QA panel, and we will be taking questions, but we'll save them till the end and address them all at the end of the webinar. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Derek.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are, I guess. So basically what I'm going to talk today about is deployment of the DITA Open Toolkit Okay, so this is the basic agenda for today. So I'll do a quick briefer on what I expect people to know. If the topic looks way beyond you, then I guess you can drop out. That's basically my thought. And then I will do a quick refresher on Windows environment variables. I will try to answer basic questions about what deployment actually means. Then, as part of that, I'll give a rundown on parameters that support the deployment. And there'll be a quick demo of how to actually set those up and get them working. Then I probably won't talk about the transcripts, but it's in the slide deck, so I will make that available as well on the website, the slide deck. And we'll follow up with some questions. So, okay, so you should obviously have a knowledge of XP, DITA, or Windows 7, which is where XMetaL Author Enterprise can be installed to, those are supported versions of Windows. Familiarity with Windows Explorer, and hopefully you've seen the product actually generate output from the toolkit using our GUI interface. So I'm assuming everybody's actually used it. If not, it'll be part of the demo anyway. So. And then Windows environment variables again. So I'm going to quickly run over what I mean by that on the next. Okay, so this is what I mean by Windows environment variables. When we are deploying the DITA Open Toolkit, we actually use these standard variables, app data and program files, to find out where your installation of XMetaL Author would be and where the user's application data folder will be, because that's where we deploy the toolkit from. So essentially, in order to find those on any machine, no matter IT administrators have set up your system because they might move things around, you can use the shortcuts, which are actually, I guess, technically called environment variables, in percentages. So you can say %appdata, you press enter in Windows Explorer, and it'll take you to the application data folder. You'll see in here we have a folder called softquad. That is essentially where we are putting all of our data for purposes of today. So program files is where we install XMetaL Author. So XMetaL Author 6 will be in the XMetaL 6 folder here. Inside program files on a default install of Windows XP, which is what I'll be running, it's actually C colon program files, but on different versions of Windows it might be somewhere else. And then in different languages, say German or French or something, you'll have a different actual name to this folder. So using the program files environment variable will take you there. Okay, so what do I mean by deployment? Essentially, what it means is getting the toolkit in a state where it's ready to run. So if you've ever seen this dialog pop up, that is essentially what XMetaL Author is doing to prepare the DITA Open Toolkit. And I will answer why and where in that later on. Okay. So why do we deploy the DITA Open Toolkit? There's some basic requirements for this. Our application is installed, like most Windows applications, to the program files folder and is compliant with Windows installation methodology. The application should also run from, generally applications run from the program files folder. And there's also some specific requirements for the toolkit, which I'll cover on the next slide. So basically what it comes down to is Microsoft would like applications to be installed to the program files directory. Then once they're installed, they should not write to that location any longer. So old-fashioned programs would sometimes have an any variable or something like that, or other types of settings they would write into the installation location. Microsoft does not do that anymore. You should write those to app data, preferably settings, and then user files should go into their documents and settings folder. And so we, in order to comply with those things, we actually need to deploy the toolkit because my point 3 here is that when the toolkit is run, it actually writes out to some files in the location that it is run from. And we want the toolkit to basically run without modifying it that way. So we just basically install the toolkit and let it run. And because it does that, it can't be sitting in program files. So in order to meet all these requirements, we copy the toolkit to the app data folder, and then it runs from there. And that's legal as far as Microsoft is concerned. It also gets around the fact that on Windows XP, you can be an administrator and write to the program files folder. It's not the right thing to do, but on many machines that it would be actually physically impossible because it's set up to copy from writing to the program files folder. So I'm referring here to two different copies of the DITA Open Toolkit. So when you install XMetaL Author Enterprise 6, and actually previous versions, but we're talking about 6 today. So 6 specifically, we install a copy of the DITA Open Toolkit when you install the product, so XMetaL Author, and we install it here. So it's going to be in whatever your program files folder is, followed by this portion here. And up one folder from here, there's a number of other folders, but this is basically the DITA Open Toolkit location. When you deploy, and this is triggered a number of different ways, but when deployment occurs, we copy to app data, and then that soft quad folder, XMetaL shared, and then DITA OT. Historically, our company used to be called SoftQuad, so that's why we still have this kind of legacy folder sitting around here. We might clean that up one day. So above this folder and this folder, there's a number of other folders. If you're generating PDF, we have configured the PDF plugin for the Translate PDF2, and so that requires RenderX, and we give you a licensed copy of RenderX. So there's a folder up one from here called RenderX, and that's where the RenderX application is sitting. There's also a backup folder as well, and that's required for some types of transformations as well. But basically, DITA Open Toolkit is what you would be making changes to if you were kind of a developer making XMetaL key changes and stuff like that. So that's most important to you also. So when does it occur? So after installation, so you have a clean install of XMetaL Author Enterprise 6.0. The toolkit will not have been deployed yet. The first time the person authoring uses R/GUI to generate output, the DITA Open Toolkit is deployed. Or if they ask to configure output settings, then at that point the toolkit is also deployed. Once that has happened, if at any time the folder, the deployed copy, which is in the app data folder, is to event, and if it's not there, then it'll be deployed again. Then there's a number of parameters that I'll cover later as well that force the toolkit to be redeployed, I guess. So I'm thinking there's probably we've decided there's basically two different types of people. There are developers or administrators, and these are types. I'm assuming many of the people on this call today would be of this type of user, and they are essentially either managing a group of people who all need to have the same toolkit settings, transforms and everything so that their output looks the same, or they're actually changing the XMetaL keys and XMetaL codes, and then need to get those out to a number of different people. So I'll talk about that. And then there's also obviously the people that you're getting it out to. Those are the DITA content authors. So those are basically people who are actually running the product, generating output on their local machine. And so you need to get your modified copy of the DITA Open Toolkit to them. So that's the second group. I'll talk about the first group. So this is essentially what I'm thinking would be a fairly standard workflow. You get XMetaL Author Enterprise 6.0, you install it, you have a look at it, and you see that you want your PDF output to look slightly different or something else. Some needs a special CSS file modification or some other changes. So you're actually modifying the toolkit to make those changes. I'm not going to cover that part of it, but just the point of today. So your workflow is going to be basically you decide which copy of the toolkit you're going to modify, and I'll cover that in a second, what I think is a good way to do it. You are going to basically cycle through making a change or a number of changes, and then opening a document in XMetaL, and then generating output, confirming that the changes actually give you the output that you like, checking for errors in a log file or something like that to make sure that there are no problems with your XMetaL keys, and then you cycle through that over and over again until you find that you have the output that you want. And then you're going to deploy that to your authors. So that's basically the first three here. So there is a setting here that should be, and then you give it a path. So I think in a typical process you would set this up to be DITA OT builder equals some path on your local machine, say /DITA OT test or something, or development. You cycle through those things, and when you have this setting, it's going to, instead of deploying it to your app data folder, it'll deploy the DITA Open Toolkit to this location, and then it will also run it from there. And so that you can just set this one and cycle through these things again and again. Let me see here. So you're going to basically set this, it's going to deploy it to that location, then you'll edit it at that location, do it do a test generate output, it will be running from that location, and then you basically cycle through these 2 and 3. Make a change, test it, make a change, test it, and once you've figured out that everything's done, then you're going to deploy it to the user machine. So you would have, again, your final version, modified version, sitting at that location, and then you would use various methods to get it to the user's machine. And I'll demo those in a second. There we go. I keep mumbling it because I'm having problems with PowerPoint. So for deployment, these are actually 3 separate points here. You can, I think what a lot of people maybe are doing because we haven't documented these parameters yet, they have a modified copy of the DITA Open Toolkit. However, you've changed it, and you are copying it either over the user's AppData location, so that it's already deployed, and you just copy over top of that, and then XMetaL finds it there, and then it runs it. Or you copy it to the program file location, and then users will, when they deploy that, it will be copied from the program files folder to the AppData folder, and that is essentially really the only way we had in older versions to do this. So what I'm talking about today is this setting, and I think it's been basically functional since 5.5, doing the same thing. So what you can do here is place your modified copy of the DITA Open Toolkit. You could put it on a shared folder on a network drive, and then essentially set this setting on the user's machine to point to that location. And when deployment occurs, like I talked about before, it will be copied down from the server to their local machine, and then run from there. So it's always run from their local machine, and at the moment, in theory, you could run it from the server, but because the DITA Open Toolkit writes to the location it's running from, as soon as you have 2 people running the same copy of the toolkit on a server, there's going to be conflict, and files will be overwritten, because the DITA Open Toolkit itself doesn't have any idea of who's called it, and to make temporary files for that specific person or whatever. It just runs and overwrites whatever it's doing. So there's going to be sharing violations or whatever if you try and do that. So basically what this is doing is just pointing to that lets you update the version on the server, and then tell your users to pull down the new version. So the other option, which I'm not going to cover today, that some of our users are doing is that they have usually a CMS system, and the CMS system could be, or can be actually, in the case of some, with some partner help, set up to have a copy of the DITA Open Toolkit running there. And then typically the process for generating output is that you would edit in XMetaL Author Enterprise, check in all your documents to the CMS, and then ask the CMS via whatever means it has to generate output from the files you want to generate output, and that's going to be CMS specific. So the one I'm just going to cover today is this second one here, because this is fairly, not undocumented in this usage. So this slide is basically just for reference. So anytime you generate output as a user or configure output, if the deployment parameters set, then it's going to deploy the toolkit. If it's not set, it checks to see if the toolkit is there in the AppData folder, and if it's not there, then it's going to deploy. If it is already there, in this case, it won't deploy, and it'll just finish. And that's the basic logic. There's in here some additional, maybe convenience, but that's the basic idea. Okay, so the parameters that I'm talking about are set in XMetaL Author Enterprise and saved. and they are set in Tools in the Configure Output Options dialog. On the Advanced tab, in this box here called Other Output Parameters, and there's a number of parameters that we set that can be modified. The ones that I'm going to talk about today are this one here, DITA OT per user version, this one here, Synchro mode, which is new, fixed, and then a couple of more that are not listed here that I will show you about. So the two that aren't listed in that screen are this one that I talked about already, DITA OT filter equals some path, and it will essentially, like I said before, copy the toolkit to this location and then also run it from this location. If it's already there, it won't copy it again. It's not going to copy it again, it will just run it from there. So this is the one that admins would use, and then for the end users you would set this with the same, okay, so there's a missing step here. Essentially, this is your path where you're going to be doing all your development. You cycle through, make the changes to generate output to our tool. Once you're finished, you're going to take the contents of whatever's in this folder, which is going to be the DITA OT, RenderX, and Saxon, and you copy those three folders to your the place where your users are going to get it. So essentially, you would have, say, some shared folder, and then inside there you're going to have DITA OT and then you'll have RenderX and you'll have Saxon. And this one's a little bit different because you actually have to specify all the way down to the DITA OT directory, and XMetaL will check to see if it finds the right files in there, and then it will copy them down, and then from that it finds the RenderX and the Saxon directory relative to this one. This next one will also allow the user to force an update. So if the user has this setting set and they don't have their app data version of the DITA OT, say the first time that they are generating output, it will be deployed to the app data from this location. If you make a change to update your modified copy of the DITA Open Toolkit and you want to push it out again, then this value can be bumped up. By default, I think we ship it with the version 1. If you set 2 here as a user, then it will go out and look for the new version of the toolkit and overwrite the copy that they already have in the app data folder. So what I'm talking about here is this setting here. So you would, as an end user, as an admin, you'd say, oh, I've updated the toolkit on the shared server. Please, everybody, if you want the new version, change this setting to 2 or 3 or whatever, and then it will get the new version. We're thinking of, in the future, perhaps making it so that if, and this isn't for sure yet, and it's currently not working, that if this is set, we may have some file that you can put in here that will say to XMetaL, I'm a newer version, and then the user doesn't actually have to make any changes. It will just always check for a newer version of the toolkit in this location and automatically pull it down. We're kind of still deciding how that would work, and in all cases, some users may not always want to have your forced versions forced down their throats, and some may always want to never have to worry about that, so there might be some trickiness to that. This last one is kind of for admin usage too. You may not want to deploy the DITA Open Toolkit to the app data folder at all. If this one is set, then the toolkit will run from the program files folder with obvious repercussions there that the toolkit's writing to that location. So you're going to have to need super user status in order to do that on both machines. A couple of other settings here that I will briefly cover. These two are in that setting dialog as well. This one ships with the value of no, and if you set it to yes, it will force the log file to open by default. This one is new to 6.0. The only setting right now that's supported is 2. It's commented out in the dialog, so basically all you need to do is remove this starting portion. I think it's rem underscore, just remove that so that it says this. And what this setting does is may be useful for many people actually. If you are running, generating output without that setting on, XMetaL essentially locks up and waits for the tool to. The toolkit is launched in a separate process so that it can go off and do its work, and you can immediately return to XMetaL Author Enterprise and continue editing. So if you're just generating small outputs, you may not really care about this too much, but if you have a 1,000-page document or something and you want to use our copy of the DITA Open Toolkit to do that, and it's going to take 45 minutes for the toolkit to finish, you can turn this on, and it will go away and do that, and you can come back and continue actually doing your work. So probably a useful setting for people of 6.0. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick demo here to talk about the thing that I just talked about. So, this is my other machine. So I have XMetaL Author Enterprise 6.0 installed here. And just to quickly show you Windows Explorer in action here. If you need to get to the app data folder, you can type this in, press enter, it takes you right there. On many users' machines, the app data folder is actually there but hidden. So if you're navigating through here and you don't see it, you'll have to go to folder options and change this setting here, show hidden files and folders, in order to actually see the contents of the app data folder. So I've just installed, so I don't have an XMetaL shared folder with the DITA Open Toolkit in it yet. So I will show you what happens with the default. Okay, here's XMetaL Author Enterprise with a topic open. When I generate output, I'm going to pick this deliverable. Asking if I want to overwrite conversion. It's now deploying the toolkit, and it's deploying it here. So that's the default behavior. We'll just let that finish. And I don't really need to actually let it finish generating output because I just wanted it to deploy it. Okay, so that's my log file. Let me quickly cover the log file thing. In configure output, that setting is the very first one here. Now that's curious. Why did the log file? Oh, I know why. The log file opened even though I don't have this set yet because I canceled output, and so it failed, and so it opened the log. This is the problem. Okay, so I have done that. Now, to quickly cover, I can delete this folder, and then the next time I generate output, XMetaL is going to find it missing, and it will redeploy it. The other thing you can do as an end user is to go in here. So this is the step for end users where you have a new copy of the toolkit. Either you have updated their program files copy by making changes, or you have deployed it to the server like I was talking about and set this other setting here. So this might be, say, your M drive, and then you have it set like that. XMetaL is going to look in this location for the toolkit and pull it down. And then it will do that right now if I increase this value. So I'm going to pretend that I have updated the one in the program files folder. Okay, so I've updated the one in the program files folder manually somehow. Maybe I am just deploying it that way. I tell my users to set this value to a bigger value, then I generate output again, and it prompts me here with a slightly grammatically incorrect grade. So as the user, I have the option to cancel that. I want to continue using my old version, or I can say okay, and then it actually redeploys over top. It's basically doing an X copy here over top of my DITA version. And then again, it's going to generate output. Oh, that's finished. Okay, so here is the checkbox for opening the log file. I think maybe people have seen that. When that other setting is not set, this checkbox is also not set. When it's set to yes, this checkbox is set automatically. And no matter what you do here for any of these, the log file is going to open up. So even if I close and I don't open my output, XMetaL is going to open the log file here. Troubleshooting. I've got some slides on all this stuff, but since I'm in the demo, I'll just keep going here, and then I'll point to the slides once I get to them later. Down here, this is essentially the guts of most of the stuff that XMetaL is eventually passing to the toolkit as parameters. So it's telling the toolkit that XMetaL needs to know where the toolkit is to run it. And so since mine has been deployed to application data, I am actually user 1. So that's my app data folder. And this is where XMetaL is going to open. My transcript is here. The temp folder where the toolkit is supposed to be running files is there. The output directory relative to my original place. This one you can actually change in our UI. So that was the default. To just make a folder below where it was, and then it's some other settings. So this is a good place to check for basic settings that are getting passed. Kind of as an admin level. Okay, so quickly, the other setting I wanted to cover was the admin type thing. So I'm going to go to my Windows Explorer here, and close all this stuff up. So in my C drive, you can see I don't have any special weird non-standard folders here. I'm going to go to set that other setting. So this is not shipping by default, so you actually have to type this in. I've just set this up so I don't have to type it in. So this is the one I was talking about before, DITA OT builder. I've given it this path. So I just turn that on here. Now, as an admin, I can do the same thing. What it's going to do is it's going to deploy the toolkit, but instead of going to my app data folder, it's going to actually go to that folder that I set in that parameter. So it's deploying it here. So you can see see that the DITA OT is sitting there, render expression. Now, to pretend that I'm going in and changing the toolkit, I'm just going to go into here and pretend that I'm making a new plugin. So I have my new fancy plugin to the DITA Open Toolkit, and I call it plugin. I won't bother putting any full files in here, I think, but basically, XMetaL is doing a blind copy of these folders. So it doesn't matter what changes you make inside here, it's just going to copy everything over. So that if I just make a new folder, put a bunch of stuff in it, or in existing folders or files, make changes, it's just going to grab it all. So I've made a change, and when I generate output this time, XMetaL, sorry, my voice is going. XMetaL is going to, with that setting that I just set, execute this copy of DITA Open Toolkit. So I make my changes. I go to XMetaL. I generate output. Because let me quickly just show you here again. Because this is still pointing to that folder, and that folder is there, you can find the DITA Open Toolkit in there. It's not going to redeploy in this case. It's just going to find it and run it. So I haven't made any major changes that break anything, so it should work. If you do break something, then obviously this will fail, and then you'll have to go troubleshoot. Okay, so then the next step would be I would take this folder and copy it to my server. I'm not going to do that because it is robust enough to handle as many users as you have. The first time they copy down from that location, if everybody does it at the same time, obviously it's going to jam things up in your network or whatever, because it's a big deployment. Most likely, if people are later updating this toolkit, if they were to do it randomly, then you'd probably be okay. But if you have multiple users hitting the same machine, it's going to be like any other massive copy on a server. You're going to have to deal with that kind of stuff. But assuming everything does work, I have my new plugin folder here. We'll pretend that I've copied it up to my M drive, which my M drive would be some Mac network folder given the drive letter M, so that I can now quickly check here in the updated copy. As an end user now, we're pretending to be. I have my XMetaL shared folder. I have this. What I'm going to do then is, as an end user coming here, I wouldn't have this setting because this is my admin setting. But I would turn this one on, and I'm going to actually tell it, we'll pretend that this is an M drive or some shared drive. And so it's going to copy it from this location to the app data folder. And so what we should see is that new plugin folder appear once I do that. So in order to force that redeployment, I also need to increase this value up as well. So let's cross our fingers, and I should be prompted. I found a new version because I said do that with that version parameter. Should be deploying it. I'm not sure. Okay, I have set the wrong value there. Okay, so it's done something wonky. I set the wrong thing. I actually need to include this on the end. For this particular setting, I need to include this. Okay, so I'm going to clean that. Clean that one up. I'm actually kind of happy to do that because I think that likely a lot of setting that some people are going to a mistake some people are going to run into. Okay, so just to make sure, I'm going to increase this again. So it's pointing to the DITA OT in that deployment location. Hopefully this time it works. So again, this could in theory be copying down from a network share. Okay, that time it looks like it worked. And so as an end user, it copied down the new copies of this DITA OT that I've updated. I will not bother because the output works. So we can see inside here we should have that folder. So this is a different location. I had it. Okay, hold on. Okay, C:\DITA OT test bed. That was my development version that I have in theory placed on the network drive. We copied it down, and this copy, which is the user's updated version, has that new folder in it, which would have all your new plugin files or whatever. Okay, so that's basically my demo. I will go back to my slideshow here. Over that, if you do need to troubleshoot, you can generate output, select from the standard file menu this option. You also got from inside the map editor. You can also use the file menu in there. There's another option there to open the output. You can set this one, which I covered as well. That turns that checkbox on by default. And you can also override that, obviously, if it is checked or not checked. So, in this slide deck, I've included a list of the standard types that the DITA Open Toolkit includes, which we also include because we include the toolkit. This is just kind of a reference thing. This is our deliverable name. The DITA Open Toolkit refers to those as a trans type, and that's actually the setting. These things are actually the setting that that XMetaL passes to the toolkit to tell it to generate a specific output type. Then there's some references for depending on where the DITA Open Toolkit is. These are the main files. First, I think I got a multi-right, might have missed something. That a specific output is using to generate this output. Then we also include the deliverable called look via renderx, which some people are still using. It's disabled by default, I think, now in our version 6 because we prefer. It makes better output in general if you use the XMetaL enhanced PDF. But some people are still using this one. This is the old or the standard PDF2 type, which I think the DITA Open Toolkit is now maybe going to rename PDF, just simply PDF2. That is sitting here. This is actually a plugin, but we install it and configure it. Then there's a number of other plugins that we install. Our single HTML file, which is different from the standard HTML, XHTML transtype. It does everything. It puts everything into one single HTML file, and then the other one here. So I won't go into detail. That's not really too important. And I guess that's it. Hopefully we're good for time.
We're a little over, but that's fine. That was 44 minutes. Actually, there's a lot of information to cover. So we have a couple questions that I'm going to run through real quick and let everybody get off to their other commitments. One is can the redeployment be triggered programmatically by a script call in an XMetaL macro set?
I was actually talking to the developer that working on this feature, and he suggested that it would be possible to do that. I think essentially it's not going to be as easy as I thought, because we haven't added any APIs for that. So it's not simply a matter of calling an API. It would essentially require you to write to a configuration file. So what I'm thinking is I'll sit down with him and figure out which file. So essentially that what it comes down to is that setting that I showed called the one that with version. Let me just pull that up here. Here, it triggers this. We don't have an API, but this is sitting in a config file, and so what you would need to do is open that config file, which I believe is an XML file. So we could write a script that would open it, say, in MS XML, pump the setting up, and then the user would basically just have to click on a macro to do that. And I think what I'm going to do is maybe try to figure out how to write that macro so that I can maybe put it up on the forum or something. So I'll make that one of my goals to give that to you guys. I've also been talking to him about making this whole process easier. So like I said before, it might be nice in order, so if, say, the toolkit is sitting on a network share, we could add some file in that deployed, in that network share version that XMetaL would check for when the user has this setting set. So somewhere in this location there might be an extra file that you as an administrator could bump up some version, and then XMetaL will check that version automatically, and that just automatically copy down the version. That would hopefully be easier, but we haven't implemented that yet.
Okay, one more question. Is there a way to set the output directory in the XMetaL configuration so that the server scenario works a bit better?
I'm not sure. Let me maybe just read that one.
Is there a way to set the output directory in the XMetaL configuration so that the server scenario works better?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand that exactly. Maybe whoever asked that question could follow up to the support call or something.
Yeah. So for that question, if the original person could just follow up with us to the support email, we'll take a look, maybe give us a little bit more detail. We do have a couple other questions, but I'm conscious that we're running pretty much over time now. So what we'll do is we'll save these questions, and I'll get Derek to follow up with the authors of the group separately. Thanks very much, everyone,